this week's very special episode of the Silverwood Show podcast. And I know I say it's always special, but this one is golden.
Monumental.
It's really golden and monumental.
Yes.
And we are celebrating Corkscrew's 50th birthday this episode. And today, we're actually dropping this episode a day early just for Corkscrew. This
because
is, a big deal.
It's its 50th birthday.
Today is the day.
Yeah.
And we're so excited about that. So we've got two very special guests this episode because we're going to make this all about Corkscrew. We've got a lovely woman who was lucky enough to basically be there since day one. Mm-hmm. And we have a man who literally knows everything there is to know about Corkscrew and what makes it so special. So I'm really excited for this episode. But before we do that, let's head into the Park Pulse real quick.
Park Pulse.
All right. So let's talk about what's been going on here at the park. We just finished Kids Weekend.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I wish we would have had a little bit better weather.
Don't we all?
always. But that was a lot of fun. And now.
Night of the Stars as well.
Oh, yes. We had Night of the Stars as well. And that was 2 nights of just,
magic.
Joy and magic.
Yes.
And I honestly... that many smiles. I don't know that I've ever seen that many smiles at the park. So
no, and it was awesome because this was the first year that we did the 2 nights, and really is because the event has become so popular that we wanted to make sure that everyone who was coming was having a great time and having what it's meant to be. It was just for the stars out there. And so all I heard was nothing but great things about.
I think it was a success.
Oh yeah, me too.
Sure.
Especially when we split it, and then the weather wasn't great, but we had people who were able just to walk on the rides. And I talked to this boy that had the best time. I got a bracelet from someone. They gave me a bracelet when I was helping load the train. Okay. Got lots of hugs.
I was going to say, how many people said, "Oh, you're the guy from the podcast"?
Just one. Just one.
Okay. Well, I
and you were there for that one.
I was there for that one. So we're going to get Jordan some autographs that he can pass out. But
Can't wait.
It's going to be fantastic. But to everyone who helped out with Night of the Stars, all of our volunteers, it was a lovely event.
Yes,
so
huge
we can't
success,
wait for next year. And now we kind of know how to streamline things in the future. So that's going to be great. Yep. But we head into Heroes Weekend this weekend. So tell us about that.
Heroes Weekend is Memorial Day weekend every year, and it is where all police, firefighter, military, veterans, and EMS get into the park for free, and then their family, their immediate family, gets a special discount when they purchase at the gate. And so it's a really special weekend because it's also the launch of Boulder Beach. And so Boulder Beach kicks off this weekend. It looks like the weather is going to be awesome.
What was it, like 80 something as we're recording?
Yeah.
So let's cross our fingers.
Hopefully that stays. But it's really kind of the unofficial start of summer for us. Yeah. So with especially last year, we opened a little later because we were getting Emerald Forest ready. And so now that is ready, we're going to start off just like we always do with Memorial Day weekend. And so come out and have a blast in some nice weather. Yeah. Don't forget the sunscreen because all of us from North Idaho
always seem to do that, and we're going to look like lobsters.
There's going to be a lot of lobsters walking around at work on Tuesday.
That's actually a great tip. An inside scoop prior to the inside scoop. So anything else you want to talk about in the Park Pulse, or should we, let's talk about what's happening tonight.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Of course.
The reason
is the Corkscrew episode.
So we're celebrating the birthday. And tell us about what we're doing that's special this evening.
So it's actually started last year when we have our end of season get together for our cast and crew, and one person asked, what are we going to do for the 50th birthday of Corkscrew? And that started getting our mind working, and it wasn't until probably a month and a half ago that we had this idea of like, what if we celebrated Corkscrew's 50th birthday with everybody who was also celebrating a birthday that day. And we're like, could we get enough people to fill a train? And we have 35 people signed up, ready to go. Yeah. And so they're going to come out tonight. We have the engineers. They're going to sing some songs. We're going to sing happy birthday to Corkscrew and everybody else out there. And they'll have exclusive ride time for an hour. And then we'll have cupcakes. And each person gets a birthday present.
It's going to be so great.
And what they don't know is in this birthday present is not only Corkscrew swag, but a season pass to Silverwood for this year.
I didn't even
You
know
didn't know that?
No.
Yes. So they get open a season pass. From
Am I going to
December.
have goosebumps this whole
You
episode?
will.
Oh,
Yes.
that made me so happy.
Yeah,
That's so great.
It's a special
Okay.
little gift that they're going to get from us.
Okay, so if they're listening, you just ruined the surprise.
Well, hopefully, let's not launch this until they're definitely not listening.
Okay, yeah, we're fine. Well, I think that's a great reason then to head right into our big drop.
Yes.
And start talking about what makes Corkscrew and its 50th such a very, very big milestone here at Silverwood. So let's do it. And we are back to kind of kick off our big celebration with a very special guest who got to experience something that most of us can't say we experienced. Yeah. We have got
none of us can say that.
Okay, yeah, well, especially in this room. But we've got Tami Martinez here. And Tami is, I'm going to call you a Corkscrew bestie because you've been there since day one. But before we get into the Corkscrew thing, let's just learn a little bit about you. Tell us about your background, all of that, and Silverwood favorites maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have lived in North Idaho since 1994, but prior to that, I've moved 47 times.
Oh, my Lanta.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad was in the produce industry on a national level, and that's kind of how we got the opportunity to get into some of the stories here. But okay, well, my favorite Silverwood, I guess the first time I came to Silverwood, because I grew up and spent so much time at Knott's Berry Farm, was the comparison. It just felt like home.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super exciting. And I've always been so impressed with the grounds, how beautiful it is, how friendly it is. But I'd have to say my favorite ride is Aftershock.
Okay. Okay.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Why Aftershock?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of there's a purpose to that. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit roller coaster shy, as you know, in my age. And I came out here with River City Leadership Academy, and we had 2 chiropractors, and they said out of all of the roller coasters, they love Aftershock the best.
Why? Because it resets their spine.
They said it's so perfect for your spine. So I'm like, I'm in.
Interesting.
Yeah, they said it just
That's
occurs you in just a perfect way. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a shot, and loved it. So I've spent a lot of time doing that one. It's my husband's favorite too. Well, actually, Stunt Pilot's his new favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Stunt Pilot was one and done for me. I loved it. One and done.
That's so interesting. So we have a new advertising campaign. It's come out and get your spine corrected on Aftershock.
Aftershock. Who knew? But I mean, I'm interested immediately. My ears were like, that's what I need. That's exactly what I need. So, okay, I'm going to go right Aftershock this weekend. Yeah. But, and you kind of mentioned that you might have a special someone that works here this year?
I do. My grandson, he has had gold passes for the last several seasons and just couldn't wait till he was 14 and applied. It was kind of cute. He showed up in a suit and tie.
No.
Everyone else was like in
gosh.
hoodies. And he came out, he was like, I got the job. It was the strangest interview. He just asked me 2 questions and went, "You're hired."
I'm pretty sure him walking in the suit, we were like, "You're not going anywhere."
Yeah, you're hired just by dressing to impress.
That's just him. But yeah, he works in the pavilion. He had his first full weekend last weekend, and he shucked many cases of corn and loved it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he just loves the job, loves being out here, is excited to meet new friends, and we're excited for him to be on this side of things. So impressed with Silverwood and the way you train up and deal with your cast members. It's just a beautiful thing.
That's
it really
great.
Is.
It's
We
great to
have
hear.
great training around here. So you did mention that somebody told you what their favorite food was here. And I just want to mention it because it's also Jordan's.
Well, yes, we were talking about what my favorite food is, and I'm one of those who brings a picnic in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But my grandson, Gage, shout out to him, anything on the Lindy menu is him. I mean, he would come out here with friends, again, in a suit and tie sometimes, and just go to Lindy's, then change to go, play in Boulder Beach and ride the train. And he's an interesting character.
That's awesome.
We're going to have to get a picture of him next time he comes in that suit and tie.
Great.
So let's kind of go back. Let's go back to Knott's Berry Farm.
50 years ago.
I know.
Corkscrew.
It is.
Just hitting the streets, I guess you could say. And you were there.
Right. So my father, I mentioned that he was in the produce industry. So he was he was the broker vendor for Disney and Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm. So as a family, we were pretty fortunate. We had free passes all the time, anytime.
Yeah.
My mom's 90, and she still has some of the original Disney books and some of the Knott's Berry Farm passes, which is pretty cool. And we were talking about this anniversary coming up. But she said, she was like in her 20s, and she'd pack a picnic lunch, and her friends would take the babies and ride a couple rides at Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm and then go home, right? Because we lived down there. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so and I remember when we moved to Wisconsin, my third grade teacher called my mom in because she said I was exaggerating in class. And my mom was like, what was she exaggerating about? Because she said she's been to Disneyland 100 times. And my mom's like, probably more than 100 times.
She's under exaggerating.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and Knott's too. So,
too.
And I love the cars that you have here because those are my earliest memories at Knott's Berry Farm, being 5 and feeling like I could drive that car.
The antique cars.
The antique cars, yes. Yeah. It's exciting. But anyway, to the Corkscrew, I think we were living up in Portland, Oregon area and going to school. And then my dad was invited to come to the VIP night, which was the night before Corkscrew opened to the public. And they did a private ribbon cutting. So I got out of school early that year and we went down to California. And, I'm 62, so this is a lot of memories to get to. But I just remember them cutting the ribbon and my brother and his friend just running to the front. And our friend's sister, which was my friend, she's like, I'm not letting them get in the first cart. So actually my brother and his friend were in the very front cart. We were right behind them. And that was crazy. It was totally crazy. As soon as it went up to the top and you could see down, I thought, what am I doing? But it was insane. And I just remember, really honestly, it was the first thing of its kind that I'd ever been on. So there was a little bit of fear. Am I going to stay in here? Am I going to, fall out? But of course, after you get down, the rush is like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
So it was super, super exciting.
How many times did you ride it that day?
I don't remember offhand.
Yeah.
We were kind of shuffled around to lots of other party event things that were happening that day. But I can remember twice. I rode on the back end the second time, and I seemed to enjoy that more. So, but the front,
this guy too.
That's my favorite back.
The back. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to see everyone's arms flying up. You feel less invested, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go. That's kind of how it is.
It's a whole different.
What was the vibe of that night?
Oh my goodness. So again, I wish I had all the answers. I think just being 12. I was 12 at the time. My brother, I think, was 15 or 16. We were just excited to be part of something. Most of it, I think, was just like, come on, let's just do some, rides and things. I, again, remember riding the antique cars that night too. So that was really fun. But it was pretty exciting. It was the first real major roller coaster that was kind of down in that area, besides the Matterhorn, things like that. But this was groundbreaking for Knott's Berry Farm, and so I just remember the excitement as a kid, just being able to be the first, right? To ride that. So that was pretty exciting.
And the first coaster that's going upside down.
Yeah, going upside down, right?
Yeah, and you over the years you read a lot about the angles of it, the velocity, that type of thing too, and it's just kind of one of those things that's like, wow, I was part of history.
Yeah,
really
that piece,
and that's amazing because like you said, you were like second row of one of the very first runs of that ride to the public.
Right. Well, actually, it was a private night, so
it wasn't even public yet.
Yeah, so I'm sure the employees had rode it and stuff before, but they did 2 ribbon cuttings, one that night, and then the next day, I do remember us going to the park, but we probably went to Disneyland too. So because we were down there, So
I have goosebumps. I get goosebumps just thinking about that. That's huge. That's such a cool thing to be able to experience.
Insanely monumental attraction in the coaster industry, and for you to be able to be there is amazing, but it doesn't stop there.
Doesn't.
No.
It's the craziest thing.
Yeah. So continue forward.
Yes.
So you'd have to, so that was, I think, what, 1975? Because I'm thinking that was the
This is
summer.
50th year. Yeah.
What year was it here?
90.
90. Okay. Oh, gosh. No, I guess I moved here before 1990. Yeah, because I was here. So I was working with a church and their youth group, and we decided to do this fun thing and, take our video cams and go into their bedrooms at 5 a.m. in the morning and wake them up and kidnap them. So the parents were involved with all of that, packed their bags and stuff, and we threw them all in the van. There was probably about 20 or so. And then we there was a family that lived near here, and we did a big breakfast, and they got ready, and then this big surprise was going to Silverwood. Well, it turned out it was the day you guys were doing your ribbon cutting on the Corkscrew.
Oh my gosh,
So-
the chances.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I ended up telling several of the kids the story that I just told you.
Yeah.
And one of them ran up to one of the staff members, and I could see her pointing at me and, talking. And so you guys did your thing and the ribbon cutting. And then they asked me if I would come up front. I didn't ride in the very front, but I got to ride it again on
For
this
the first time.
Yeah, and the ribbon cutting that you guys had that
my God.
day, and that was pretty exciting. I will tell you though, it's a very different experience when you're 12 and then when you're 30.
And
I mean,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And then it's very different when you're 60.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So roller coasters have become smoother and,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was pretty exciting. And I will tell you, I do remember this ride much more. And that was, I don't remember my head going like this. I don't remember that feeling, So
Yeah.
it was a whole new experience being an adult doing it.
Yeah.
But what a treat.
Mhm.
I mean, what
That's
an
amazing.
incredible, treat that was. So,
That's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
yeah.
And then how many times do you think you've ridden it since then?
Oh, well, it's conservative. So,
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm going to say probably no more than 10.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, because
it's
you
continuous,
come and it's like, it feels like that's my roller coaster.
It is your
right?
roller
Yeah.
coaster.
So you have to. I mean, especially if the lines were like completely, lower that day, it'd
Yeah.
be like, okay. And then, every time I ride it, well, I have to say I pretty much close my eyes through the loop.
Yeah, yeah.
On that one now. So, but yeah, I mean, what a fun full circle story.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. it just
Jordan, we're
is.
making it more full circle, right?
Yes.
She's got to be invited.
She's yes to
To
our
the
50th birthday.
party
Yes,
because
she's
you've
invited.
got to be there. I
Yeah.
mean, Corkscrew would be really upset at us
No
if we didn't
kidding.
invite her. So,
Oh my goodness, that's
yeah.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
you're just gonna have to come and celebrate with us
That's
for
that's
this
What-
big milestone.
I'm just thinking you are the only person in the entire world that rode it at Knott's Berry Farm after ribbon cutting and at Silverwood
Yeah.
after ribbon cutting.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, if
Literally.
there's someone else out there, I'd love to
I
meet
don't think
them.
so.
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening, let us know. But yeah,
It just, it was a real benefit in my father's industry. So we got to do a lot of firsts,
Mhm.
and so that was kind of fun. And I'm segueing off, so you can stop me if you want.
No
But I
problem.
can remember when we lived in Wisconsin, a gentleman was trying to pitch my dad for his agricultural product, and he invited him to the house for dinner, and he said, now, I don't want any of you guys making fun of him. He has a different voice and he dresses kind of a little bit different, but you guys will be very polite. And it was Orville Redenbach.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. We had cases of glass popcorn, in our basement there. And I think for, I don't know, we had popcorn balls forever.
Yeah.
Halloween, all
Oh
of
my
that stuff.
goodness.
So it, there were some real fun, unique opportunities.
Yeah.
Although we were raised just kind of like a normal family,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, the same as anyone else. We just had these additional opportunities that because of how respected he
Yeah.
was in the agriculture industry and
Yeah.
stuff. So we got invited to a lot of things, and
love
it was Knott's Berry Farm and the Corkscrew was just one of those things that was worth him pulling us out of school, and we got to go down there
Yeah.
and celebrate that. So
Did you ever think that 50 years down the
No.
road it'd be like this?
you didn't even have to finish.
I know. I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not at all. I mean, it was great. And I kept thinking that day when you guys were cutting the ribbon, I'm like, this can't be the same roller coaster. But sure enough, there's a Knott's Berry Farm logo on it. I hadn't been up on the news that you guys had purchased it, and was unaware of that. So the feeling I had that day was almost in awe and surreal, right? It just really was. So that was kind of exciting.
One of those meant to be moments.
No kidding.
Honestly. Yeah. Well, and then for us to come upon you, and Jordan to be talking to you and find out all of this before our 50th.
And that's funny because Jordan and I know each other from another organization that we both volunteer with. And I can't remember. I think we were talking about that. And my husband said, have you ever told him the Corkscrew story? And I go, I think I have. I'm thinking that I have. And he goes, you need to tell him. So we're here today because Jean was like, you better text him that story.
Gosh, it's crazy because we were looking for someone that wouldn't it be so cool if we had someone that was there
both times.
But not even both times. We just wanted someone there.
Exactly.
Now we have someone there and here both times.
It was crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I had no idea that you guys were even looking for that. It was just one of those moments where my husband, was like, we're standing in the kitchen and he's like, did you tell him this? And, tell him this. And so when I texted to you and you said that, I was like, okay, look at the can of worms you just opened for
kidding.
me.
Love it.
So,
I still have goosebumps. I love those kind of stories.
Do you remember, I know you talked about like when you were 12, I don't have a ton of memories of just like the vibe and the energy of that. But when it was opening here, what was that like?
Yeah. Well, that's where I was saying it was kind of surreal because I kept thinking there can't be two roller coasters. Do they name them the same? I was a little kind of confused because I didn't know that you guys actually had purchased that one.
Yeah.
So then pretty soon I'm hearing people talk and this has got to be the one. And I think even to the moment of getting into the cart to take off, I wasn't quite sure until I saw the Knott's Berry Farm logo on there. And then it was like, this is so cool. What are the odds, So I just think I was probably more within myself than enjoying what was happening, out and about and the monumental moment that it meant for Silverwood.
Yeah.
It was just a monumental moment for me.
That's awesome.
I love that. I'm just sitting over here with goosebumps. I love I love stories like this. This is what really encompasses what Silverwood is all about.
Yeah.
And so many theme parks, is to be able to make those memories and,
and to
that's
continue to live them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, that's the crazy part. Well, that's the part I was nervous about. Like, if I come to this party, are you going to have me right again?
You can watch.
Yes, just having you there would be such a blessing. So, we love that.
But, I wrote it last year. So, like I said, it's just, I know.
What's another year?
Really.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. And definitely put you on Aftershock again this year too.
So. Well, we'll correct your spine at the same time.
I'll go with you because I'd like to experience this. It's been a while for me. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then so our birthday, we're celebrating the 50th, and because it is such a monumental coaster in the industry, but we'll cupcakes and people who are celebrating their birthday on the same day are coming out, and so. We have, I think, 35 people who are celebrating their birthday and going to celebrate it with Corkscrew on that day.
Cool.
Huge birthday celebration.
We need to have the person who is there at day one there as well.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. It's just, kind of, like I said, I was down in Southern Oregon visiting with my mom. My brother lives there, and he would have been all about being up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would have been awesome. So, but... You have senior citizens.
I guess
even. If I can do it, anyone can do it, right?
You're only as old as you make yourself, and you are still very young at heart. And I can 100% tell. So, yeah. That's Do you have any other questions for? I'm just over here in my feelings.
No, I think, all of that. We'll just wrap it up with this, with all of your memories with Corkscrew from day one to year 50. What's your favorite?
Surviving. No. I'd have to say, it really comes down to the fact that it does feel like, hey, I know this roller coaster inside and out. It's not necessarily, like I said, I love Aftershock. my granddaughters love the wooden roller coasters, and I just, we've just kind of grew up around amusement parks our whole life, so I love it all. But the Corkscrew, I guess my favorite memory is that it's just part of me, right? It's just part of who I am and experiences that I was privileged enough to experience. But as far as the ride goes, I mean, I'm 60, so shaking my head. I mean, that's why Stunt Pilot's so smooth. I mean, that is just a really, a smooth one. But I guess my recommendation is do the Corkscrew and then do Stunt Pilot afterwards, and just see how exciting the technology has where how far it's come, and how Silverwood has kind of led the way in all of that. You guys have great history and
kind of encompassed everything.
Yeah.
That's great. Love that.
Oh, thank you so much, Tami. I'm over here just because I don't know why. I've Corkscrew has become an emotional thing for me as I've been learning all of these stories, and it's so much more than just a roller coaster. And thank you for helping explain that to our audience so that they can kind of understand why this is so special.
It is, and I'm looking forward to hearing about all of the installation, all of the other pieces, because when you're a kid, you're just like, let me on that ride. That's about all you're thinking about too. So, but thank you for letting me tell the story. And it's just kind of an ironic way how it came about.
Well, it's such a cool story, and to let it live on, for those who, wish they were there, or weren't even born yet either time, right? And so to be able to hear from someone who was there is such a cool moment in history for us to share with everybody as well. So thank you for coming up and sharing the story with me so we can get you on here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I did think of one thing, and so when the gal from our youth group up here ran over, my first thought was dread. Oh, please don't tell them. They're going to make me get on there and ride it, right? But what a cool thing. So I'm super glad that, I was a little embarrassed, I think, at first, but then it was like, who gets a chance to do this? Right? So
exactly.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing it to North Idaho, and thank you for, everything Silverwood does is just pristine and so great. And I guess my plug with my grandson is that your kids need a job in this summer. I cannot think of a better training ground, a better support system, and just people that are so excited about their job that just really kind of, just embed into them that work is important and it's fun, and you just have such a great culture here. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
And so much
Thanks
growth.
for coming out.
So much growth. So hopefully he will grow with us.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we'll see him in years to come.
He's looking for Scarywood in a couple of years.
Okay.
So.
Well, we'll be ready for him.
Yes, we will. All right. And that's a great segue into our next guest, who is going to tell us a little bit more about the technicalities of Corkscrew. So that'll be coming up next. And we are back with our second special guest of this episode. Yeah, we're doubling up on you guys this week. I've got a very special guest who, he knows more about Corkscrew, I think, than most people.
All of us combined, probably.
Probably. So I'd like to introduce to the show Nicholas Laschkewitsch. Did I do it right? Okay, good. I've asked him 6 times now. He's got one of those names. So you can say it just so that you can correct any weird. You go ahead and say it.
Yeah, so my name is Nicholas Laschkewitsch.
There we go. Perfect. And Nicholas, tell us about yourself. Yes, give us a little background.
Yeah, so I'm based in Los Angeles, California, and I am an avid roller coaster enthusiast and historian. I am with the American Coaster Enthusiasts. We are an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit organization who are dedicated to the preservation of roller coasters, the enjoyment, and most importantly, in my eyes, the education of the history and importance of roller coasters in our industry.
Which is why he's such a perfect guest for today as we're celebrating Corkscrew's 50th birthday. Go ahead and just tell us. So how are you familiar with Corkscrew other than just being a professional at this?
Yeah, so I've been with ACE for over 15 years now, and one of the projects I do with the club is I produce historical documentaries about the industry, about roller coasters. I've done 10 documentaries over the past 12 years.
Wow.
And one of the documentaries I did was on a company called Aero Development. And sharp-eyed fans would know that Aero is the company behind Corkscrew. They're the ones who designed and built Corkscrew. And so I know a ton about the history of that ride, and I can share even more. I can share even more.
Well, I think that's probably where we get started. Is so our previous guest on here, she was there for the ribbon cutting at Knott's Berry Farm. She was also here for the ribbon cutting at Silverwood just by chance. So I want to take even further back of like, how did we get Corkscrew? How did the world get Corkscrew to be the first modern steel coaster to go upside down?
Yeah, so Aero Development has been around since the late 1940s, and they didn't build a roller coaster until 1959 with a little-known coaster called the Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disneyland. Very revolutionary for its. Yeah, I'm sure you have heard of it. It's very revolutionary for its use of tubular steel track in roller coasters, typically referred to as the first tubular steel roller coaster, and that started off a whole new genre of rides in the industry. And so throughout the 1960s, Aero Development created what's called a runaway mine train. And runaway mine train coasters are found all around the world. Other manufacturers have built mine train style coasters. And come into the 1970s, and the idea to go upside down in the modern era came about again. And we hadn't seen coasters that had gone upside down at that point since the early 1900s. And we're talking, small circular loops that had really high G-forces. People often got whiplash or got hurt. And so it had been, a long time since there had been an attempt to go upside down again.
It sounds just like a good time.
Yeah, it really does, right?
Absolutely. And so the idea to go upside down led to, why don't we do something that's maybe not necessarily a loop like we all know today as probably one of the most iconic elements on a coaster that go upside down, but a corkscrew. And so Aero in the early 1970s, let's say around 1973, 1974, began developing the concept of the corkscrew. And they did a full-scale build-out of the ride in their Mountain View, California shop. So middle of Silicon Valley, where high tech was starting to boom, so was the amusement industry. There was a lot going on in the area. And the corkscrew that we know today, of course, at Silverwood, and before that, Knott's, is the exact same one they built completely in full scale in Mountain View as well. Wow. And that's where the Knott's family originally rode the corkscrew, and that's where they decided to buy it for their park. But it was set up there for a long time where they did full-on promotional videos. Anybody who wanted to buy a ride like that could come see it for themselves and see what a corkscrew really was, because it was the first one ever.
So how did Knott's become the first to get this prototype? How did that discussion happen and also then land there in 75?
So interest was definitely huge when this was built, and people literally driving by their shop, because it was right along Highway 101, a major throughway. People could drive on the freeway and see this massive roller coaster on the side of the highway. So even just local buzz was generated by just being able to see it in public view like that. And as far as Knott's being able to get it, I think it landed out just being right place at the right time. They showed the most interest of anybody. And the Knott's family was very adamant and strong about, what can we do to keep this park on the map? And, being a family-owned park at the time was a big deal for them to kind of talk as a family and figure out, okay, what do we want to do to keep the public coming? And the corkscrew was the next best thing for them. And Marion Knott is the one who was the one who visited the park, or visited Aero's facility and got to ride the ride. And ultimately the decision was made that we got to have this, and they were the first to do it.
That's so cool.
It's incredible. Yeah. I guess now moving forward to opening day and like kind of the build up to opening day, like what did this construction look like? And then heading into the excitement of how do you market a coaster that's never been seen before for people to finally experience going upside down? And what was the response to that new coaster that's being installed?
Yeah, so one of the things that they discovered early on, actually even prior to building the full-scale layout of Corkscrew at the facility, was they did a prototype test track, which had a reverse hill, if you will, where they winched it up this hill, and then they would release the cable and it would drop down, and it went through a single corkscrew just to test the idea of if this element is even going to work. And not only was the sensation of seeing the world flip upside down very, revolutionary for the time, but the idea of taking shots for marketing, looking down the barrel of the corkscrew, if you will, very early on became a quick aha, this is like how we're going to market this ride. It was so photogenic in the way that the ride would go through the element, and to be able to stand and look down the double corkscrew as they ended up ultimately building was a real eye catcher. And so you'll see in marketing, whether it's TV commercials, whether it's early newspaper ads, even merchandise like bumper stickers, all prominently featured how that iconic element looked. And that was definitely an eye catcher from the very beginning, and even to this day is a very photogenic. I look at a lot of roller coasters as art and engineering as art, and I think the corkscrew is a great element of how an artistic mind can bring an engineering idea to life, and that was carried all throughout its marketing campaign.
I love that. I would love to see some of those old, photos and videos and everything, and kind of compile those and share them.
Well, that's probably my favorite place to take pictures too. Is looking right down that barrel of the corkscrew.
Spot right
There's the
there.
spot.
Yeah.
Yes,
we've only been open 3 weekends, and that's basically the spot I've placed myself because it's just the best. You get to see all the faces as they're coming at you, and it's magical all in itself. And so you kind of shared with the world a little bit about aero development and its legacy through your documentary, which was named the same, right? The Legacy of Aero Development. And that came out when?
It was in early 2016, and it's on YouTube. It's available to watch for free. Everything we do is a free public service sort of situation. So the organization and members fund our documentary projects, and then anybody who wants to watch them, it's free for the world to see and learn.
So cool, which means you were out here, right? Did you come out here?
Yeah, so there was a small film crew of us. There were 3 of us at the time. It was, I believe, August of 2015, and it was all of our first time to the park. It was a park that I had always wanted to go to. I grew up with the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. That's my home park. And so I've had a long love of family-owned parks, parks like Silverwood, parks like Lagoon. I love family-owned parks, and I'm so glad that there's still a great community of them around. I know all those parks talk to each other as well and share ideas and their families. It's very much a family within a family industry, which is great. And one of the things that was really great about filming at the park was we had an opportunity to walk up the lift hill of the log flume and film the corkscrew from the vantage point from the top of there. And what was really exciting, we didn't even know this at the time, it was one of those movie magic moments that happens when you're on production, is there's a great vantage point of corkscrew from the top of the log flume. And it matched almost identically with the photo we had of the ride set up at the factory in Mountain View, like almost exact angle, exact elevation. And so in the documentary, we do a match shot where we do a zoom out from the top of the log flume, and then we transition into the shot of it at the factory just to prove to people that, this is the one, this is the ride. And other than getting a chance to ride a piece of history and film on-ride video of it, that revelation of wow, this was meant to be. This log flume allowed us to get the exact angle without even trying. And that's one of my favorite shots in the film is showing that.
We've had a lot of those meant to be moments in this
episode,
have. And that's what makes Corkscrew so magical. I'm not kidding. It's just there's so much behind it. But let's see. What else? I
have a question. So so Aero develops Corkscrew, Knott's buys Corkscrew, but then they also develop other similar rides that are basically a cookie cutter of the Corkscrew, and those get scattered around the country. What was the popularity of those rides and others? And can you talk to the subtle differences that might be between the original that we have and some that, like the ones that was at Cedar Point or other ones around the country?
Yeah, exactly. So what they ended up doing was, it's like a lot of car manufacturers, ride manufacturers like Aero started looking into ways they could sell a certain model or a certain layout of a ride. It's easier to sell a certain type of car than selling one-offs. And so they decided, based on the success of the Corkscrew, that they were going to offer variants of it as well that allowed them to be more modular depending on what park wanted one. So, of course, there's the standard model, like you have the original with the double corkscrew, but then parks like Cedar Point could opt to add a vertical loop if they wanted to, because a year later, Arrow then revolutionized, no pun intended, with creating a vertical loop and started to integrate that into their corkscrew design. And so maybe you could have an airtime hill, a loop, and then go into the corkscrew. So the layout maybe is elongated a little bit. There was one park that actually did a triple corkscrew, which is a very rare thing in the industry as a whole. And so they were able to kind of mix and match different elements. The double corkscrew is featured on many of their full-on custom rides as well. So, for example, if you go to Six Flags Magic Mountain, they have a very large looping coaster there called Viper, and that has loops that are very high in the sky, but it also has the iconic double corkscrew at the end of the ride, much like a homage, almost, if you will, to how they all started with the corkscrew. And so it's kind of cool to see how their rides changed over the years and how they went from things that were a little more intimate. Not that a corkscrew is necessarily like not scary, because for our first coaster to go upside down for a kid, that's definitely scary. But it's great to be able to have these coasters still around that we can look back at and say, like, this is where we came from. And I think that's what's important about the history of this industry is, I mean, roller coasters are kind of an odd thing if you think about it, but it's fun that parks like Silverwood, like you, have decided to, pay attention to the history and see the importance of it, not only in acquiring corkscrew in the first place, but taking the time to maintain the ride and keep it for generations, because now multiple generations have been able to ride corkscrew. Some people can come to Silverwood and say, I rode it in 1975, like your other guest, and now I can ride it at Silverwood and I can take my own kids on it. And that's worth so much. That's worth so much.
I have goosebumps again. Don't worry. I'm just, for whatever reason, corkscrew gets me in my feelings.
It does.
So, yeah.
So now, 1990, it gets brought to Silverwood. And how is that, I guess, process getting it up here, but also to have such an iconic coaster at a family-owned theme park? How did the roller coaster community handle just kind of that transition?
Yeah, when I was learning about the history of the ride, I was actually amazed that it was relocated at all. You typically don't see prototype coasters, because that's certainly what this was, necessarily relocated to another park. Not necessarily because they weren't successful or good, but because sometimes the ways they were assembled was more, let's say, less able to be relocated, or it was more of a permanent installation. And Corkscrew is a great example of that, where that ride was welded together. Coasters more typically today, track pieces are bolted together, they sleeve into each other, and they're more modular, if you will, so you can more easily relocate or assemble a ride. But what's fascinating is that Corkscrew, of course, was built in Mountain View first, welded together, torched apart, brought to knots, welded together, torched apart, and then welded together again at Silverwood. And you can see, and it's not like you look at it and you think, oh my gosh, it looks unsafe, but you can tell that the ride has history and it has a story to tell. And I think it's a really, I give the Norton family so much credit for looking at the opportunity to save a piece of history like that, because I think it takes a special park and a special family to do something like that. A lot of parks are also looking for the next big thing, the next new thing. And the Corkscrew had already been, there was over a dozen Corkscrew coasters in the country at this point. And so it's great that, despite the extra work, it was able to be moved to that park, and I think it was definitely worth it.
And so now, what does Corkscrew mean to the Corkscrew community after 50 years of operation? What does its legacy mean to the world?
Yeah, it really shows how we've come as an industry. You look at how fast coasters are going now. You look at how many inversions. We're breaking over 10 inversions on some rides at some parks, which is unbelievable. And the combination of creativity that we're seeing in the industry is really astonishing. But I still love classic rides almost just as much as new rides, and it's something about charm. Older rides tend to be what more people would call rough, but I don't call old rides rough. I call them, that's just more charm. And I think Corkscrew is full of charm. And, I think that's what makes wooden coasters so special, which is so great that Silverwood has multiple wooden coasters. A lot of people say that wooden coasters might be too shaky and they're not safe and everything, but no, that's all part of the feeling of a wooden coaster. And I think the feeling of a coaster is just as important as what the ride does. There are also really fantastic smooth coasters, and that's not a bad thing either. So having that variety of the old and the new, and being able to, in my opinion, pay our respects to how far we've come is really important. And I think it gives park guests an appreciation of the past. And the way it's been integrated into the park and cared for over many years, I think is a testament to that ride's history.
You just encompassed everything.
Yeah,
100% right there. There's the quote. It's just, yeah. I'm still over. You talk.
Okay,
you got
I'm
the
talking.
good questions. I'm over here in my feelings.
That was kind of like
yeah,
my
I know. I'm like, wow.
my
I'm
finale
speechless.
question because it means so much. The 21st marks the first day that the public was able to ride that type of roller coaster. And now 50 years later, it's some kid's first roller coaster ever. And I think it's such a tribute to, just like you said, how far we've come, because right down the road you have Stunt Pilot, and you have Aftershock and some of these bigger roller coasters that all got their start with basically Corkscrew. Corkscrew kind of was the one that started it all. Can you touch on just like how fast the technology grew from when that Corkscrew was put onto the market, and then the coaster wars and how we got to where we're at today?
Yeah.
Yeah, that really was a massive kickstart, because after that, in 1976, just a year later, we see looping coasters begin. And multiple manufacturers started kind of all at the same time, unbeknownst to each other, which is an interesting part of the history, is that multiple companies were deciding that we're going to do a loop. And it all happened that same year within weeks of each other.
Wow.
And it really just started raising the bar for what a roller coaster can be and should be. And before that, it was more pretty much just family thrills at that point. Think about the Runaway Mine Train. When the Matterhorn, we're talking 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. Yeah, or maybe we're doing some tight banked turns, but we're not going down 100-foot drops. We're not going through 80-foot tall loops. And so once people had a taste of what an inversion was like, it was like, how else can we bend this track into doing some other crazy inversions? And so we started seeing rides with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 inversions. And then we started experiencing with launch coasters, because in the late 1970s, in 1977 or so, launch coasters become a thing. And again, multiple manufacturers start toying with that technology and then throwing loops into the mix with that. And it's really exciting and amazing. Like the first decade between 75 and 85, the amount of looping coasters, launch coasters that exploded worldwide is unbelievable. And the cool thing is, a lot of those early birds are still with us today. Some of them, like Corkscrew, have been relocated maybe once or twice, but they're still creating memories for people globally. And I think that's, again, another testament to the technology and the innovations that those rides left with people.
Yeah. And you want to tell everybody what kind of happened to Arrow? What after the coaster wars and everything?
Yeah, so they went through a few struggles. In the mid-1980s, they experienced their first bankruptcy and went through multiple different ownerships where, maybe necessarily innovation was stifled in lieu of, we got to make more money. And I think that can hurt a lot of companies when they are able to be free-flowing with their ideas and what they want to do. And so in the mid-80s, Arrow fell under their first bankruptcy. They thankfully came out. A bunch of their employees were able to bring the company back to life in 1986. And it came out of that as Aero Dynamics, which was their more modern name. They were Aero Development before that. And then they existed until the early 2000s. Their last big coaster project was the Fourth Dimension Coaster X2 at Magic Mountain, which is an unbelievably wild ride compared to two little corkscrews. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, this can't be even a roller coaster at this point. It's, they went bankrupt during the construction of that $50 million attraction, back when a corkscrew cost around, I think, $800,000. So we're talking 50x multiple of what rides were costing compared to when Corkscrew was built. And, Six Flags was able to finish the ride and they were able to open it, which was great. It's been an iconic ride for the industry. But what's fascinating, I think, about Arrow's history is that their first coaster was the Matterhorn at Disneyland, and their last was X Magic Mountain, and they're only an hour away from each other, despite building, 100 roller coasters and rides, log flumes, everything you can imagine. Log flumes was another innovation of theirs. So it's sad that they're no longer around, but that's what led us to doing this documentary project. Is so much of the industry today would not exist if Arrow had not been around. You look at the tubular steel, the log flumes, the corkscrews. It's really amazing what they were able to do, and they were just geniuses. And again, Corkscrew is able to be a monument to that legacy, and it's great that people can go to ride Corkscrew. And it's one of the biggest reasons I want to bring my friends to Silverwood is there's so much there that I love about Silverwood. The train ride, especially, I'm a big fan of your train ride, and just the charm of the whole park in general. But as a history buff, Corkscrew is a big draw for me, even though it's been there for so long. It's just so iconic.
Jordan loves the train ride.
I do love the train ride.
That's his baby. So that always makes Jordan happy. So, would you say that's your favorite part then? Are you going to come back and visit us for more?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's been far too long since I've been back. And, the fact that Corkscrew is there a decade after I was last there is great. And to see the park grow with rides like Stunt Pilot, which is bringing the next generation of thrill seekers out there, which also has a corkscrew on the ride. So you can ride the old corkscrew and experience a new age corkscrew, which is really neat to see, again, the lasting impact of that element.
Yeah, I love it. Should we do an inside scoop with him?
Yeah, let's
I think
do
we need to do an
Okay,
inside
wait.
scoop with you.
I need to get
Yeah, we've got a fun sound that goes with it.
Yeah, so there we
Here's
go.
our ice cream truck. Because we've got a very special ice cream here at Silverwood. You should try it when you come here. So tell me, share an insider tip about making the best out of your roller coaster experience here at Silverwood or really anywhere. And if you want to make it Corkscrew related, even better.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah, well, certainly, yeah. So Silverwood has a great variety of roller coasters, whether it's being able to experience history with the Corkscrew and where we've come from, to even the olden age of wooden coasters built in a modern era, but able to experience the thrills of even farther in the past before Corkscrew. So I think the best thing you can do is try everything. You want to get a flavor of everything. Try the new with Stunt Pilot to see what a single rail coaster is like with really tight and intense inversions. Go back to Tremors and ride what a wooden coaster is like. That's my favorite coaster, actually, at Silverwood, is Tremors.
Okay.
With the consecutive tunnels and the airtime hills. I think there's something to really be said about the excitement that ride brings. And I love a good wooden coaster because, again, it harkens back to where roller coasters began. If you go back even to the beginning, it's where it all began. And so I think to round out your Silverwood experience, or any park experience, you got to try a little bit of everything. Even if you're more into the new stuff or more into wooden coasters, sometimes I like to actually also ride coasters in the order that they were built at a park.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that gives you a flavor and a sense of like how the park changed and how the industry changed, and that can really add a whole different dynamic to your park experience.
Okay,
Love that idea.
Perfect.
That's a great idea.
That was a great inside scoop. That's about all we've got for you, Nicholas. You have just, you said it all. We didn't even have to ask you, so you really did help kind of explain why
I think there's so many people that had no idea about the history of Corkscrew, and I think that's the goal of this episode is 50 years, but it's more than just 50 years, right? It's the incremental changes within the industry that started with this ride and how now we come to Stunt Pilot and Aftershock and some of these more advanced rides. So
it's the
appreciate
OG.
that.
It's
it is
the OG for sure. So Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys want to check out that documentary, again, it's on YouTube, and it's the legacy of aero development, and you can learn a lot more about all those coasters. So thanks again, and that's going to wrap up this episode of the Silverwood Show podcast. Make sure to sign up to be a loyal listener at silverwoodthemepark.com/podcast, and we just might be calling you next. And that's a wrap on this week's ride.
That wasn't even that scary.
Thanks for tuning in to the Silverwood Show. If you had a blast, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the fun with your fellow thrill seekers. Got a question, story, or suggestion? Send it our way to podcast@silverwoodthemepark.com for a chance to be featured in our Mail Train segment. Until next time, keep your hands and feet inside the podcast and stay thrilling.
Let's go again!
Silverwood, come join me.